How's it going? This video is going to be about Plato and the dialogue Crito. So, in the last video we did on Plato's apology of Socrates, in which Socrates was convicted of corrupting the youth, essentially training youngsters to question people's values, of atheism, which is essentially not practicing the Greek religion in the way a lot of people wanted him to. And then the third one was making the worst cause appear better, basically annoying people by questioning their beliefs and their values. And he's given a couple days before his execution, and a friend of his rolls up named Crito. And he comes to his cell and tells him that he's paid off the guard, and that he and Socrates' other friends are ready to whisk him away to another place where he can live. And a lot of people have staked their lives, their reputation, their money to break him out and put him in a new city. And Crito's argument is basically along the lines of, well, your friends and your friends value your relationship with you, your friendship, value your work, your life, and they want to sacrifice what's important to them to preserve your life. You ought to think about your family, who will basically have to live without you if you choose to accept your punishment of death. Socrates is touched by the concern and by the gesture, but he doesn't want to leave. And he says, well, if you're concerned about people thinking that you're no good because you're not helping your friend out, don't worry about them. They're idiots. You worried about an idiot's opinion? No, don't worry about that. So he says, let's go through philosophy, because this whole thing is about philosophy. Let's go through philosophy and find out if this is a good idea or a bad idea. Well, for leaving, I was screwed over in my trial. I was railroaded by the prosecutor. My work and my philosophy are good. That's why I do it, and they've been dismissed because they're inconvenient to a lot of people in Athens. They're inconvenient because I and as well as many other people following my lead are challenging them on their beliefs, why they do things, and then I'm trying to force them to think about what they're doing. Okay, that's for. Now let's talk about against. Now, in against, we say, well, any city that you take me to, they mention Thessaly in the text. Any city you take me to, probably going to be worse than Athens. Athens is pretty great, even though I got screwed over here. So my new life is not going to be that great. So you're not selling me too hard on that. Running away is essentially overturning Athenian laws in their court rulings, which is in a roundabout way overthrowing the state. If you try to go against Athenian laws, you're essentially trying to overthrow the government. And essentially, what are you doing? We live in a democracy where your friends, your family, your parents, your neighbors, they are Athens. And then when you're a child, the state takes you and raises you. You benefit from all the good things it gives you, and you're subject to the rulings that it gives. And you, as a single person, you don't have the right to overthrow the government. We all have one voice that we all have to pull together to decide what our government does. And if you're wronged, as in the case that I was, you get a bad sentence. You don't correct one wrong with another wrong. Two wrongs don't make a right. By running away. All the time, when things are bad in Athens, you could try to correct them, correct all the mistakes made by the state. The state is your parent. It allowed you to flourish. You don't have the right to lash out at your parent or run away from your parent just because your parent is wrong or works against you. Once you've become an adult, you could have left Athens. You stayed here in Athens. In fact, you never left. You raised your family here, so obviously you felt like Athens had something go for it, that you would bring a child into this city as the best place to bring a child into. And you never said anything. You never did anything against it. So it means that you implicitly agree with these things. And in spite of all the faults here, you agree with this. So once Socrates was convicted, he could have repented, he could have asked for exile, but he chose to stay. in spite of the death sentence. So why would he be running away? It's very hypocritical. It's damaging to his reputation just to violate a ruling. It's unjust, and it's pretty terrible to anybody who's knowledgeable about justice or the law. So, I was thinking about this, adding my 2 cents on this, and I was thinking about Socrates. I'm thinking, I think that Socrates' age plays a role in his accepting his fate more than he admits. So if you're talking about the time, it was 399 BC. There were Greeks, not just from Athens, but from all over what we would call Greece today, the Greek-speaking world. They were establishing colonies all over the place. In countries, in modern countries, it was in Turkey, in Egypt, in Libya, Romania, Italy, France, Spain. The list just keeps going. They were spreading all over the place. And, so it was very possible if you ran out of room, you ran out of opportunity, you got on the wrong side of the government, you could start over someplace else. Many of these colonies were successful, many were not, but people had a try at it. And then, it was clear that Socrates' philosophical bent was gaining popularity, and this is why the Athenian authorities decided to go after him, because he was the source of all their problems. But I think it was a little too late. People like Plato, Xenophon, Aristotle, Glaucon, they were already absorbing his ideas and building on them to the point where this thing it's gone out of control. So, and you have to ask, well, why did did Socrates and his friends not pick Socrates up and whisk him away to an area without much in the way of resistance? Not just another city where they could just live, exist, but thrive on this. Because remember, in the Republic, he talks about establishing a state in the best possible way. Why didn't he want to put this into action? And I mean, some of the answers that I would think of is, well, maybe Socrates was a little bit vain. There's a lot of glory in being a martyr, and being a martyr for your brain is like the ultimate martyrdom. He might have been too old. Obviously, he even mentions this. But he and his friends really had no practical skills other than sitting around talking about things. In order to establish a colony, you need farmers, you need masons, carpenters, blacksmiths, fishermen. You need all of these people. This is part of the reason why a lot of early colonists in America had a lot of problems. They had no skills. They just came here and they thought, oh no, we actually have to eat. We actually have to exist. And they were not able to do that. So Socrates and his friends had pretty much pissed away their fortunes sitting around philosophizing in the agora, the marketplace. And their only desires or skills was navel gazing. So you compare this to the United States. So why did people come to America before it was a country? Well, people left Britain for many reasons. They wanted religious freedom. They wanted economic opportunity. They wanted adventure. They are the wild place that they wanted to check out because it just beat the boring life of living in sort of a pastoral existence. And as the colonies built up, there were problems with Britain with respect to justice and representation. And I don't think that reconciliation was possible. Just in the same way that I don't think reconciliation between the philosophers of ancient Athens is possible with the authorities. That, in the case of Great Britain, Parliament was not responsive to colonies' requests or needs. The king didn't give a damn about his subjects. He was more concerned about his own little life. He was also going a little bit crazy. But, they were more concerned about what the French are doing, what are the Italians doing this, that they didn't care about these Americans. These people were thousands of miles away. They weren't really a problem. We want the money coming in, but we're not going to listen to anything you have to say. And I don't think that reconciliation was on the cards. Fortunately for the colonists who realized this after maybe 100 years of grumbling about the Great about Great Britain not responding to it is that, look, we can rebel and nobody will do anything about it. If they had been next door like the Irish, it would have been a different story. But to send your army over a giant ocean was just too much for them. And then, obviously they lost. So the Americans won. They built their government based on their philosophical beliefs. They put their beliefs into action. So why didn't Socrates and his friends do the same thing? Well, I think, possibly they were too lazy. They just sit around talking, and then they didn't want to put anything behind it. They might have been too arrogant, too hubristic. Remember, I brought up the Republic. They wanted to establish a city of the philosopher king, where they kind of choose you when you're a child and put you into different, a different career. So it was very arrogant to arrogate your self-power like that because I'm smart, they might have believed that Athenians would eventually cave to their superior intellects, their superior arguments and their reasoning, which eventually didn't happen, but for many other reasons. They might not have had the sense of adventure. They might have wanted to leave. And perhaps they had no belief in their beliefs. They don't think that they could actually act on their beliefs. And no democracy in Athens. Well, let's put it like this. Democracy in Athens wasn't always about justice. It was about protection from tyrants, that if you could decentralize power in the city, it'd be very difficult for a tyrant to rule, which was a very major problem in Greece at the time. If you read Greek history, tyrant. Not very popular people. It was very centralized power. And so the Athenians decided to decentralize that, and it flourished. It flourished the culture of the city. So we lionize Socrates, and I think we should, for his beliefs, that the Socratic method is one of the best ways of teaching people, because like Socrates says in another text, that you essentially are more like a midwife than a teacher. You are just drawing these ideas out of them that they already have in their head, and you're destroying bad ideas and helping them give birth to good ideas. So I think that's a good aspect of Socrates. But when it comes to acting on his beliefs, he really didn't put anything worthwhile into practice. It all just rest theoretical. Maybe that is one of his true legacy to the world. It leaves a lot to be desired. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.